Cherrytown Vibe writes, when I was living in a prolonged depressive state, I just felt like I was going to die, and I didn't know what to do before my life ended. When I did nothing, I was screwed. But when I tried, I felt better. And I think there's something to be said for that. You know, when I was living in a prolonged depressive state, Cherrytown writes, I just felt like I was going to die. And the thing is, well, you are going to die. It's just, not then, and not as a result of that. And the whole, I feel like I'm going to die, that's a story, right? And I don't know if you guys remember Y2K, right? I'm assuming the majority of people who listen to my stuff, remember Y2K. Everybody thought like the world was going to explode because the computer was going to reset, and everybody had different understandings of what it meant. But for the most part, everybody was like, as soon as we hit the year 2000, we're all fucked. Like, they didn't know what that meant, but that was like the fear. And then it came and went. And when it came and went, it was like, oh, all right, well, I guess we messed that one up, And it was sort of just an analogous parallel to what I talk about when people are depressed. It's like, yeah, you guys are waiting for this negative thing to happen. Certainly, the more stories you tell yourself about it, the more self-fulfilling a prophecy it'll become. Certainly, you do have some influence over the probabilities of certain outcomes, but what's the answer that is going to put you in a better situation more times than not is, almost put it on the shelf for a moment and just start moving. Allow your body to interact with the reality in a way that doesn't really have space in your bandwidth to still maintain that story. There's I don't know if you guys ever watched the show The Mentalist, right? One of my favorite shows, and more so I watch it with the kids and everything, and it's like safe. They don't have a whole bunch of stuff that today's shows, is fucking wrought with. But there's the main character, Thomas Jane, is sort of like this. At one point, he was a fake psychic, sleight of hand, mentalist, I guess, and he was like just one of these cool characters. And I've met people, in my life that had that same type of persona and training, and they're always fun to be around because they're just tracking reality in a different way, right? But there's this one thing, this manipulation that he does in this one episode that I've seen taught in other applications, in NLP applications, whereby there was a girl holding a gun at him, and he was talking to her, I think a phone or something, and he was like, oh, you got to talk on the phone, and he handed her the phone, and she took the phone, and then he put his hand out, and he like picked something else up, so she had the phone, and then he wanted to hand her something else, so he put his hand out, and she handed him the gun, and he gave her the other thing, and then she realized that that she had given him the gun, and she was like, what the fuck? And it was just him, just basically controlling her bandwidth to where she couldn't pay attention to what was actually happening. And I think when we deal with movement in the face of depression, it's like movement does the same thing. Movement engages our conscious mind in a way where less and less of our bandwidth can be allocated to maintaining those depressive stories. And that's a lot of times how we wind up snapping out of it. I remember when I was a teenager, I'd certainly be going through depression. I can't say I was ever like the response or the direction that my depressive states led to was ever suicidal, right? Because that is certainly obviously a pathway that is common, with people who can't sort of get a grip on their relationship with depression. But mine more so made me more violent, right? It's easy to say homicidal, but I'm really saying that tongue in cheek, right? It's really when I was in a depressive state, I would go and look to pick fights, and I would look to find somebody that morally in my mind, I could draw a story. Well, this guy needs to get his ass kicked. So I'm helping everybody. But right or wrong, and it was usually wrong, I'm willing to acknowledge all these years later, when I was done with the fight, I felt good. I felt better. And it's not that fighting made me feel better. It's that fighting was an example of something that monopolized my bandwidth so I could no longer maintain feeling bad. Right? Hope that makes sense.